Hello, welcome to the, what is it? The 6th day of July, no, August. I'm a little in a fuddle this morning, 2025. My name is Kurt, and this is my daily Good Life meditation, a live video exercise that I do every morning at around 5:30 a.m. to remember my life objectives and principles, those which are outlined in my book, Going Alone, which you can read for free at goingalone.org. I also use this time to think about the last 24 hours and to reflect on any noteworthy challenges or opportunities, or to think about the larger atmospheric circumstances of my life. I go for my creed and I prepare for the coming day. I'm literally a little bit out of sorts. You can see I don't even, my muscle action isn't quite there. Yesterday was a big day. Nothing noteworthy happened. I just worked really hard. In addition to, basically, my daughter and her friend Crystal were here, and I was for the last 4 days, and I was taking a break from all the other stuff that I'm doing, namely my job, my store that I've started, my online store, and I was attending to them. Yesterday, they didn't have any activities planned. So I was pretty much just up here, and I had encountered the day before a big problem in my online store that I had to fix. So I was up here working on that while the girls were packing, getting ready to go, and then we orchestrated their departure, which happened around 11, I think, in the morning. After that and after lunch, I came back here and I just buckled in at the computer there that I borrowed my wife's computer. And it was the hottest day, for sure was the hottest day yet. And I have no air conditioner up here. We were getting a new air conditioner installed downstairs, but there's still no air conditioner up here. We might take care of that next year. Remember, we already blew our budget for the move. We had a budget to move to Japan, to buy the house, to do the renovations, and we already spent all that money. So I'm trying to hold off any big expenses until next year. So I'm living up here, which is an interesting thing, to be able to survive a Japanese summer in my 60s without air conditioning. It's kind of a challenge. But yesterday, I think, might have left me a little bit, dazed and confused, literally. That's how I feel right now. Maybe I'll skip radio exercise. I have radio exercise, but you know what? I shouldn't. It's not so hot right now. I'll go do that. Anyway, so I guess this is, and don't worry, I mean, it's not like I got heat stroke or anything like that. It was just that it was like running a marathon, and which I used to do. When I was a not marathon like, but I used to be a cross country runner in high school. And sometimes it takes a little while. It'll leave you a long run like that. It can leave you out of sorts for a while. That's exactly how it feels. So and I haven't even done my greeting and disclaimer stuff. Hello, new subscribers. Good to have you here. I'm a 61-year-old guy living in Japan. Like I said, I make these videos to help me tune my life. I can talk about anything I want in these videos. I'm at liberty. It's my own journal. You can leave comments if you want. I will read and respond to comments when I'm done. I do talk about sensitive subjects. I really talked about some sensitive subjects yesterday. Really talked about them. Wow. I do live in Japan. In fact, there's a Japanese giant hornet right there. It's the second time I've seen it since I started the video. They live everywhere here. They've been coming in and into my room. It's quite exciting. I took a note from just as a slight aside, about a month ago we were up in the mountains and we had tea at an old Japanese home where, while we were there, they had the Engawa. They had the windows and doors open, and we were dining inside. And twice, or was it 3 times during our meal, Japanese giant hornets, which are the most dangerous animal in Japan, one solitary one would come into the room, zoom around the room, buzz around our heads, and then go out the door. And I did what I could because the patrons weren't around. They were in the kitchen preparing a meal, and there were a couple of, the hosts weren't around, and there were a couple of patrons. So I kind of did what I did to kind of shuffle the hornets out the door. And when they came back, when the host came out, I told them about the hornets that had been in the room. And the woman's response was, who grew up in that village, her response was, ah. All she said in Japanese was, ah, the hornets. It was, ah, she said, ah, suzumebachi. And that one word, the way she said it, really reminded me that for the Japanese that grew up in the countryside, lived in traditional homes, Japanese hornets coming by and visiting their patios, or coming in the house through the open door, are just a part and parcel of such a life. I mean, they didn't have screens in their houses. Giant spiders would come in. Hornets would come in. You know, I know, and they clearly knew that as long as you don't, molest them in some way, they'll leave you alone. So now sometimes I'm sitting here in my little chair, or I'm standing here doing something, and a hornet will come by because they live right there. They'll come by and buzz around my head, and I tried to do my best to just stand there and deep, and off they go. All right, I haven't finished my disclaimer. The last part I wanted to say was thank you, deep gratitude for my YouTube viewers, watching my viewers, Patreon supporters, and YouTube members. I really appreciate that. Okay, as for yesterday, 2 notes from yesterday. One is self-restraint into freedom. Self-restraint into freedom. Yesterday, like I said earlier, I had a big task that I needed to do to fix a problem in my store, and that task would require a full half day of work because I had to adjust individually each and every listing in my eBay store on a half day of work. There were other things I wanted to do as well. The girls were already gone, so I was free, including shipping. All this note means was that in the midst of all of that, as I began to feel a sort of stress rising that I have to ship. I normally require that I list. I had to go to the post office. I had to fix that problem. The stress started rising. But then I used hashtag Temperance to restrain myself into freedom. And what I mean by into freedom is that I'm retired. I don't have to work. The only thing I have to do is when someone buys something from my store, I have to fulfill that order within 5 days. That's easy. I don't have to do any of this other stuff. And I actively used hashtag Temperance to restrain the emotions. And then I replied hashtag limits to remember my true limits and true opportunities. When I'm saying hashtag this and hashtag that, I'm referring to the principles and objectives in my book. Because the limited opportunity was that the opportunity part was that I don't have to work. I'm inviting stress into my life, thinking I have to list an antique and a product item, 2 items a day, and fix this other problem. I don't have to do either of those things. I do have to ship. I didn't even have to ship because I was like I have 5 days to ship, and the order happened the day prior, but I did ship. Anyway, it worked. It worked very well. I restrained myself. I used hashtag reason to recognize my hashtag limits and a hashtag opportunity to come up with a plan that I then executed, which was that I put aside the listing pressure, and I said I'll get as far as I can with the fixing the problem, and I went to the post office and shipped. Good job, Kurt. I'm going to give myself 5 stars on that one. Handled that well. The second note here is the 7-Eleven parking. If you follow these videos with some regularity, you'll know that one of the things I struggle with living in Japan is driving. I'm not a good driver anymore. I'm an excellent driver in the United States. I'm an awful driver in Japan. I was a good driver in Japan when I lived here before, though. Things have changed. Yesterday, Yumiko and I, after we dropped the kids off and after we had our lunch, we stopped to get ice cream at 7-Eleven. And I parked, and I backed into things twice, so I tend to be very cautious backing up. And I parked, and a little later, a guy was trying to park. We went and got the ice cream, came back out. We were sitting in the car, enjoying our ice cream. and a man was trying to park in the slot next to us, and he was coming real close to our car. And I was making note about whoa, 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 and Yumiko commented, and usually Yumiko, there's not an ounce of malice in my wife's constitution or her body or anything. So she made this simple casual observation that I was parked rather far forward, which is the kind of thing that bothers me because it sounds like backseat driving. But this is why I note here. I immediately used hashtag temperance to control my emotion. Then I applied hashtag reason to think, well, Kurt, yeah, when you were backing up, you kind of did stop before you went any further because you were afraid of, I was thinking this, afraid of running into something. And I kind of looked out the window and I realized, oh yeah, geez, I am kind of forward. Now the car engine was running, so I just, without a word, I simply put my foot on the brake, put the car into reverse, dropped the parking brake, and backed up carefully 2 feet to put myself into the proper space. Now, the reason I'm saying, not a word was passed between my wife and I. The reason that this is significant was this was an example of me encountering in the course of my day something that is notoriously drives me crazy, which is backseat driving, which is not really a fair term to use in this case. My wife was simply answering my observation about the man trying to park. He was getting close to my car with a fact. And then instead of reacting to that fact, responding to it, or instead of reacting inappropriately to that observation, responding inappropriately, I assessed the situation and without missing 2 licks of my ice cream, backed the car up to alleviate, to address the problem without a single word. Put the car back into park, applied the parking brake, went back to eating my ice cream. Didn't have to say a word, another 5 stars. Yesterday I handled those situations really well. Remember, this is my journal. I can point out when I do well. I can also point out when I don't, which I'm just as readily able to do and willing to do. Okay, on to the creed. And I'm going to go fast now. I'm exhausted. My 8 objectives are to be always ready to die, to make good and effective use of time, to develop and maintain good and sound life principles, to cultivate good emotional reactions, to perform good actions relative to my creed, to do just one thing at a time, to recognize my true limits and true opportunities, to do just one thing at a time and do that thing slowly and deliberately and carefully, and to keep my balance. As for principles, I read yesterday The Great Life Adventure, which means that today I'll read The Risk of Avoiding Risk. Okay. The Risk of Avoiding Risk, principle number 25, 2/3 of the way through the principles on page 268 of the book. The sub-principles: risk management, becoming the person you are, and to err on the side of family. Here we go. Life presents us with a variety of risks which we must attend to. Our parents and society commonly advise us to get an education, find a good job, and then settle down to a safe and sane life, making and raising babies with a decided worthy another. These are good, responsible things to do. But I offer there is a deeper risk which also needs attention. The risk of living a long and healthy life without allowing ourselves the chance to develop and engage our deeper self, or experiencing life without much challenging adventure, or living in such a way as to keep too much distance from the risks which yield the rich and satisfying reward of discovery, maturity, survival, and growth. So attend to both types of risk: the practical aims of school, work, family, security, and money, as well as perhaps the less practical, though often quite worthwhile risk of not becoming the person or living the life of our dreams. Avoid the trap of managing risk to the extent of walling ourselves completely into our own safe, secure, and familiar coffin, becoming who we have settled for, though when in doubt, always err on the side of family, even if such living might at times feel like a coffin, as such efforts are usually in alignment with our deeper and perhaps our only true life mandate and purpose, namely, getting our genes successfully into the next generation, passing, as Emerson might say, our ripened being into tomorrow. All right, as for the next 24 hours, I have only 2 things that I plan to do. Prepare for my driving meeting tomorrow. We're going to go to the driving center where I'll have my final meeting, hopefully be reissued my Japanese driver's license. Work on that. And then I have this paperwork to fill out. So that I've been, I got the paperwork on Thursday last week, but I held it off because the kids were coming and I needed a clear window of time in mind to work on it. I talked about this yesterday, so I'll briefly mention it again, just in passing. I've got a huge catalog of videos on YouTube, and with some interesting periodic regularity, about once every year, I get contacted by television studios that want to use some part of my video. And of course, it's a paying gig, right? Because they want to use it in their TV show, and they expect to have to pay for it. So I just had that happen again. This time, though, I used, this is the first time I've done this. In the past, I would get these requests and they would ask me, how much do you want to let us use your clip? And I would think this is a reasonable amount. And they would always say yes. And I would always ask for roughly the same amount. This time, though, when I got the request, ChatGPT has this agent mode where you can, spin up the agent and ask it to give it a task, and it'll go off and it'll do all the research, and it's like having an intern. You tell them, go off and do this thing, and mostly they do a great job. So I was doing something else, and I got this request email, and so I spun up an agent, and I said, hey, I gave him the email, and I said, I want you to go research on the internet, the subject of compensation for private video usage rights for television. And I want you to come up with a reasonable amount to request for this. It went off and did its research, and I want you to cite your sources. And it came back, it took it like 15 minutes to do, and it came back and it gave me a report. It said, okay, here's what I found, here's all the websites I visited, here's what I found. This is the range of reasonable amounts that you can offer, you can ask. And it gave me parameters. It said, you can make an offer to ask for a certain amount of money for, up to 60 seconds worth of utilization. And it was all very well worded. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. It was an astonishing amount of money. And an amount I would never, ever have asked, where I would have felt like an idiot asking for that kind of money. And I said, well, okay, can you draft me an email that I can send to these people? And it drafted an email, and I said, can you pick the middle road, right? For that. And it did, and I sent it to them, and I didn't think I'd ever hear from them again. And they wrote right back immediately and said, yeah, sure, we agree to that. So anyway, it's all done, and they've decided how much they're gonna use, and they want to pay me now. So they sent me all the electronic forms on Thursday to fill out, which is, I think it's a 1099 form, because he's like an independent contractor. And don't worry, it's not a scam. I've done this enough times to recognize the pattern. And they also a form where I can provide them with the account to drop the information, to drop the money in. I know that sounds risky. I've done it before, and I vetted these people. So I have to take care of all that today. But the more and more I say it, it kind of sounds like a scam. But I'm confident it isn't. And by the way, I have a special. It sounds like I have an account that I use as a kind of like an inbound repository that doesn't have much money in it. And I use that account for money coming into my life from all the various sources, right? Because I have all these activities online, and I set up, and I have to give access to my finances to these institutions. And so I have it's like a staging account where the money comes in, but then is not connected to my real account, so to speak. It's in the same institution, but it's not connected. So even if it is a scammer, there's nothing they can get out of it, because it's just an inbound. It's like a Dropbox. Remember those banks? How banks, I don't know if they have them so much anymore, but back in the old days, the night Dropbox, where I got the idea actually from that. where the merchants can close up their restaurant for the day, have the bag of cash, the receipts for the day, and they just go to the bank. The bank's closed, and they open this door and throw it in there. It's a one-way street. So I got to do that. But that's no, because that's important, and it's been almost a week since they sent me the links that they sent me the information to fill out to get paid. It's been almost a week, and I deliberately held off because I didn't want the distraction of my daughter being here to cause me to not fill out the forms right. Hey, that's an interesting animal, right? That's a really interesting animal right there. This that looks like an ant is not an ant. Can you see it there? That's a jumping spider. It's a jumping spider, and I've only seen one ever in Japan. It's a jumping spider that looks like it, that has evolved to be. Let me see if I can switch the camera around. It's a jumping spider that has evolved. There it is. To look like an ant, because ants. A lot of predators don't go for ants because ants are nasty and they taste bad. So let's see if I can zoom in. And unfortunately it's kind of blurry, but if you can get a good view of the pedipalps, there you go. Now you can see it's a spider. See? That's a jumping spider. Jumping spider that looks like an ant. Can I get even closer? I can. See the big eyes and the pedipalps? That's only the second one I've ever seen here in Japan. I made a video of the first one. It was softypapa 1.0 video. It's out there somewhere. It did really well. Got a lot of views. I should probably turn the camera off and get a view of it. I'll do that. All right. Hey, Tim, good morning. When I look back now at stress, panic attacks I suffered at work, I wished I had done something more to address the impacts at the time than just admitting to myself it was an issue. Robert says, good morning, Kurt. I forgot to go over the temperature. 29C, 44% in Napanee, Ontario. 29C, wow, it's 26C here and 85% humidity. Tim says, I guess there was a certain amount of shame admitting to it, especially at work. Yeah, I hear you. I wanted to just get through it, right? Especially because the first time I got the panic attack, I said, screw this, I quit. I gave notice the next day. I did a retirement, so there wasn't anything to address anymore because I kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater. Robert says hi to Tim. Hi, Evelyn. Robert says hi to Evelyn. And Tim says, weather check here in the UK at 9:44 p.m. 14.9 C, 59% humidity. Quite cool this evening. Wonderful. All right, everybody. Well, I'm going to stop. I think I'm going to skip radio exercise. I am literally going to sit. I'm going to stop and I'm going to sit at my little desk there and I'm going to watch a Netflix show. I'm watching this show right now called Mo, which I'm really enjoying. It's about an immigrant to the United States. Very timely for the issues there right now. I'm just enjoying the human element of the drama. I'll wait for Yumiko to get up, take the dog walk, and then have a peaceful day, just as you suggested, Evelyn. Thank you very much for that. Yes, chillaxation time. Have a great day, everybody. Be safe, but not too safe. Bye-bye.